And a couple more. Okay, 11:02. We can probably let her rip. All right, Frank, ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, I guess I'll go video on. If you would like to do the same, we can get the ball rolling. Okay, all set, Court, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, good morning, everyone. And on behalf of those of us in the Eastern U.S., thank you for attending today. This is an intiGrow sponsored event entitled Posture and Policy Development. I'm Jim Skidmore from intiGrow. We also have with us from our strategic partner, Tech Data, Frank Welder, senior subject matter expert, who will be taking us through a lot of security detail as we go through our three-part series. Today's first part will utilize a combination of content for your knowledge. It will also entail some reference to the cyber range so that people can actually see the tools and technologies that are involved in really completing sort of the best practices policy kind of aspect. If there are questions along the way, we would probably ask you to hold them till the end. And that being said, we are on time, so I will pass the baton over to Frank Welder.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. I appreciate that. Let me get myself all set up here on making sure I click the right buttons and then sharing my screen and all those other different things, right? A better presenter would have had this all ready to go for you, but unfortunately, you're stuck with me today, folks. So with that, I'm going to share my screen out and get ready for a great little chat today, I hope, right? So as part of our discussion today, I know we got folks on, I really do work at trying to make these things as interactive as possible over time and space that we've got in this very special 2020 global pandemic, everybody working from home type environment, right? So I do want to make sure that we're all aware of Jim and I will be monitoring the chat function with inside of this. So we've seen some, attendees are muted and stuff like that, right? So we've got the chat function going there, but I would suggest, let's see if we have the Q&A function on part of this. Nope, we don't have. Oh yeah, we do. We have a Q&A button.
Yep,
as part of our thing today, right? So let's use, if you have any questions today, if you're on the call today and you got any questions, I got a couple monitors here. That's why you'll see my head turning this way as I'm monitoring stuff over here. My apologies for that, right? But Jim and I will be Jim and Courtney are going to be our presentation buddies to be able to answer any questions you might have. And if I'm rolling along and Jim sees something, you're like, oh, we got to take a break right here and talk about this a little bit more, Jim will make sure to bounce in and get my attention so we can have that bit of the conversation a bit later on, or while we're going through our piece of the discussion here, right? So again, questions, comments while we're going through this thing. Let's use the Q&A to do that with all of us on the phone, and I think we'll just work right on through that. So as Jim mentioned, right, I have what I call one of the best jobs in the business, right? I get to talk to people about technology, and one of the things we like talking about, especially from a security standpoint, right, and that is where I've been focusing at in the last, oh gosh, 9-10 years, I forget. I'm such an old guy now. It's all going, shall we say, right? But one of the things, there's been some common themes that we've had when we're talking with our customers about, gosh, what's a good security posture or a good security environment look like, and what should we be doing as customers? What are some of the best things we can be doing to help protect ourselves in this cyber area, in the cyber security area, right? And so that's kind of what the premise of our discussion today this, right? What are some of those fundamentals of security from an IBM perspective that we really think would help you as a customer? And that's why we have this 3-part webinar series. And this first the first part of the webinar series is all about visibility. That's what we're going to be talking about, visibility. And we'll explain that position and some of the things we've got, as well as a demo we put together to help try and show off that piece of the visibility here. So let's dive into this thing. We got some marketing PowerPoint stuff to talk about, and then some other things. Let me also turn on my my fancy dancy laser pointer, because you know I can't live without a laser pointer. And I got this number popping up on the screen, and I love this number because it's not my number anymore, because I'm right. My doc says I'm in great shape now, right? And that kind of gave it away, right? It's the blood pressure of a security leader inside many organizations, right? And we think a lot of it has to do with this to-do list you see over here. All of these things that they've got to get done, and all of them are priority number one, and the next thing that has to happen associated with that. And we think a lot of these things on the to-do list can be addressed, looked at by some of the things that are going on, from making great decisions and security postures, as well as working with the right organizations and the right people to help address that and put that into place, right? So no doubt that they've got that our security teams have some challenges associated with it. But here's some of the other things that we're hearing from our customers out there today, right? Our customers are asking us, make sure we can cover the day-to-day operational things. But these are the 5 big ones we're really starting to hear associated with that. Our customers are asking us to help them modernize their security frameworks and controls, because there's so many different ways. Think about what hashtag WFH, work from home, did from everybody here. Everybody's now a remote employee. What do you think that did to most organizations' security frameworks and controls? There was some scrambling going on associated with that could have been avoided, right? Not totally avoided, but could have been avoided and addressed, right? But it really helped them understand what those frameworks and those controls are and how they can take advantage of them. They have a real big challenge, our customers, that most customers have, with a security skills shortage, right? If I take a look at somebody who's got a title like I've got, a CISSP, right? There's a couple of job sites out there that tell me there's anywhere between 180 and 290,000 unfulfilled security jobs in the business today, right? So you as the customers are also facing this skills shortage associated with this, that talks about not only what I should be doing, but how I should be putting into place. The third one we're seeing from our customers from a theme is maintain data privacy and regulatory compliance. This is a huge one. Even though we got some skills issues associated with that and the controls are changing and things like that, government regulations and European Union and California Consumer Protection Act, different things like that, we have got an issue with our customers being asked to front load and do a lot of these regulatory compliance pieces, which absolutely we needed to be able to do, but the cost of being able to do that with folks they don't have is a big thing associated with it. Well, these last two are probably the most prominent ones we hear when we're talking to leaders inside the organization. And that is, many of these organizations are putting IoT devices in there, Internet of Things, but it used to be security guys call them Internet of Threats associated with it, right? And many organizations are going to continue to be deploying these types of sensors, which increases the attack vectors that the bad guys could be using against us. So let's understand what those cyber attack vectors are and how we can help address them, including IoT, right? Putting that as part of our process. And last but not least is many of our customers, right? It's still right the 1585 rule right now, right? 15% of customer workloads have ended up in cloud-like related areas, right? But there's still a whole bunch of workload that hasn't made it yet. What is holding that up? Why is that not happening faster for many organizations? Because we've proven things like cost and efficiencies and effectability and things like that, right? Effectability, I'm not sure if that's quite a word. I was going for effectiveness, but it ended up with effectability. My apologies with that, right? And that is, so the number one reason we hear from many customers why they haven't moved to the cloud is how we can make that that journey to their cloud and secure that for them in the market space. And here's one of the slides that we start talking about quite a bit is that organizations have made the decision they're going to be moved to the cloud and they're going to be able to drive that digital transformation. But 75% of organizations have deployed a multi-cloud environment. So ask yourself this: are you running on more than just Azure or AWS or IBM Soft Cloud or different ones associated with that? If you are, right, you're in the vast majority associated with it. 80% of enterprise workloads have yet to migrate to the cloud. So think about that with inside your organization. What have you put up in the cloud and what's still out there to be put into the cloud, right? And 91% of organizations are concerned with cloud security, as they should be, right? Because if you don't have a good foundation of fundamental things associated with that, that journey to cloud is going to be a lot more difficult or fraught with more danger. So how can we help alleviate and bring that into place, right? So let's talk about this security into the fabric of your business. So from an IBM perspective, we want to be able to have security that understands your business. So that says, you know what, I've got this database server over here, and that database server houses my customer and purchase history associated with it. That has a higher value to me, right, from a business perspective, than maybe something that keeps track of something that's not your customer record, right? Or maybe it's an internal, the last 10 years, your IRS audits and things like that, right? We want to make sure we have the security that understands your business, security that unites your defenses. We're going to talk a lot, when we talk about visibility, I always talk about those as defensive security tools within inside your organization. They tell you about stuff that's going on and what's been happening, right? I want to have security that brings all those defenses into a single pane of glass and helps me understand that that's normal behavior or abnormal behavior associated with it. And then security that unlocks your innovation. We don't believe that security should be the business prevention team within inside your organization. It should be the team that says, oh yes, if you want to be able to extend that capability out to this cloud platform, security just comes right along with it because of how we've implemented within inside our organization, right? So when we talk about those three big areas from a domain area, right? This is how IBM takes a look at that inside that same piece. And I'll tell you where we're going to spend some time at associated with it. First and foremost, we start talking about strategy and risk. This is a huge piece of trying to figure out where you're at and where you should be going. Being able to understand what are your risks and what is your risk remediation or be able to address that type of risk within inside your organization. And this, quite frankly, is something that's achieved via consulting services and discussions and conversations, right? This is about saying, where are you at with inside a security model, a security maturity model? How do we take you from where you're at now to where you're at in this different area? And then build leadership and culture associated with it. And this is one of the things intiGrow does as a partner for IBM Security that they do day in and day out with their customers, helping them understand that. They've seen many different models that apply that associated with it, as well as teams from IBM can actually help that out as well, right? Entire, groups of PhDs that do nothing associated with that. We're going to spend a lot of time today talking about IBM's threat management perspective or threat management domain as part of this. And one of these things that we're going to be talking about is first and foremost, if we start talking about those 5 things that our customers are asking about, skills and controls and things like that, one of the things that we have to be able to help our customers understand is how IBM can help them stop advanced threats within inside their organization. Many organizations we talk to say the number one thing affecting them is phishing that leads to malware, that leads to data exfiltration. And that's going to be our demo environment today, our use case. We're going to use that as our thing today, and how that's an advanced threat and how we can help stop that. The next 2 sessions we're going to have are going to be about master threat hunting, right? So how we go out and find different things. And then we're going to finish up the 3rd one with orchestrating incident response associated with that. So those are the three that we've got as part of this webinar series. And then as part of the we may continue on having some digital trust things, right? Protecting critical assets and govern users and identity and identity management, and then unifying endpoint deployment, right? We're not going to be talking about those a lot as this webinar series, but they may be something we add on in month 4 or 5 or 6, or where we're going to continue on, because this is what it looks like for many of our customers, and I think you the folks on our webinar today probably fall in that same category, right? There's a lot of different things we have to worry about, right? And in this type of environment, we want to talk about unified security for a hybrid, right? On-prem, off-prem, and multi-cloud associated with that, because that is the reality that many of you are living with today. And how do we put all those things together associated with that? So I did want to then just bring this up and start talking about the things we're going to be talking about, right? So this is where we get IBM and our partners to be able to do strategy and planning, risk assessments, and advisory services associated with this. And this is this is one of those, if you don't know where you are and you want to figure out how to get to here, this is where, bring along somebody that's been there and done that, and got the t-shirts associated with that to bring that into place. As we talked about, we'll be doing a lot here inside the threat management piece under the Stop Advanced Threats. And we'll be talking a lot about this thing from IBM called QRadar. Then we'll do master threat hunting in the next session, or then incident response. And then digital trust is all over here, right? From things that are being offered by the rest of the IBM portfolio, right? And then I always like to use, who's it? I think it's Bob Kalka from IBM always uses this slide. He talks about security is a team sport, right? So when we start talking about IBM security, we'll talk a lot about that. But there's this other thing that says that if I'm going to be able to have defensive tools that can see everything sitting out there, I want to make sure that I've got a capability that I can integrate with all of these different things that are in my ecosystem. So I had a very good friend who always used to say, if I went into your house today, I wouldn't see an LG refrigerator, an LG stove, and an LG washer and dryer, and an air conditioner, and a microwave, right? I may see Samsung and different things associated with it, right? Because you as a customer are probably going to be out there selecting the right thing, the right tool for the right reason associated with that. And we see that with inside security tools as well, right? We think some organizations have way too many security tools, but we're going to say that we can integrate many of those security tools into this single pane of glass that works well for being able to then figure out what are these advanced persistent threats and how can I see them, right? So we'll talk about integrations out of the box and then different things associated with it, as well as IBM recently has done some great things to increase its security pieces, right? So it created this thing called the Open Cybersecurity Alliance. So again, security is a team sport, right? And they've got a place for being able to manage and look at all those things, right? They've also had with Cisco and with Symantec, not Symantec, my apologies, with Checkpoint, they announced that RSA 4 years ago, 5 years ago almost, right? That they were going to be able to do work on threat intelligence and alliance and different things like that. So that's the thing. As well as, let's not forget, IBM just doled out, I don't know, 32 billion, 34 billion, I forget the crazy number, to purchase this company called Red Hat, right? And Red Hat is this, from an organizational standpoint, has great pieces of technology that we're going to incorporate as part of their offering and our offering to really bring great capabilities out into our customer market space. Now, something we're not going to talk about today, but that is a great use of this Red Hat technology, is IBM's announced a series of offerings called cloud packs. We hit upon it in a previous slide here, these cloud packs for security piece that we've got sitting out over here, right? But that really came from a lot of from a delivery piece using Red Hat's OpenShift piece, and then IBM's great offering to be able to tie these together for containerized pieces. Again, not a formal part of our discussion today, but boy howdy, this really gives us some great power and flexibility and different pieces of control that we can bring into place. So I don't want to think that we're going to be doing this alone, right? Because success in security, as well as it applies to everything else, starts with a great strategy. And that's, again, where working with intiGrow or IBM to be able to understand what that security strategy is. If you've got one, great, let us help you execute on it. If you don't have one, let us help you define it for your organization as well, right? So this gets into this, right? So that piece of it. So now we're going to transition right into our threat management piece associated with it. And this is one of those things that says, hey, are you getting the most out of your defenses that you've got put in place, right? Are you getting the most out of your security logs and flow information and all those different pieces that are put together to help drive that great defense within inside your organization? Right, so we understand that there are some challenges, right, when you start trying to bring those pieces into play associated with that, right? So uniting those defenses across these individual functions can be very complex, right? Because if we think about the functions as a top line there, and then people, process, and technologies along the line there, right? This is going to be can be a daunting thing associated with it, right? Because I need to be able to say an insight, right? What's happening? What are some of the things I should be aware of, right? Protection, these are the things I've got in place. Detection, right, is something has happened. And I'm going to use this term offense and violation of security policy quite a bit as part of our discussion today, right? And then once you find it, how you respond, how quickly and how accurately and how timely, oh, that's the same as quickly, right? You respond as part of this thing, as well as recovery then, right? Being able to bring the things back online, right? So we want you to be able to say, as an organization, we want to be able to help you connect people, process, and technology with AI and insights to unite these defenses. And we'll talk about this. I think we'll get this thing to come into place so that we can help you as a customer focus on what's most important to you as an organization. So we think there's an IBM offering that talks about, well, if I'm going to be able to have this insight protection, this process, this NIST framework, this framework associated with it, I'm going to have some IBM things associated with that as well, right? And we think first and foremost, one of those that ties into this is this X-Force threat management service, right? So we want to be able to say, right, hey, I found a new bad actor IP address out here, so no one host is handing out malware, right? Or hey, you know what? I found a new file hash for someone that's using it to deliver malware with inside your organization, right? So whenever put this, right, and I want to make sure that I have an X-Force threat management system or any threat management system that works with me instead of against me, or not helps me as much as we can, right? So we're going to talk about how IBM's X-Force threat management sees every time somebody comes out with a new indicator of compromise, right? Malware, host, whatever it is, right? A new IOC associated with it, that you as an individual using the right tools don't have to update that, right? It auto-magically updates it from IBM's threat feed into our environment that says, hey, you know what? Here's a new file hash associated with that. And oh, by the way, we just found it in these 3 systems that were downloading the same email associated with it, right? I want it to be that proactive associated with it to be able to do that. The other things are X-Force Red and X-Force Iris. Hey, these are the things, right? X-Force Red is we will help you secure your environment and do ethical hacking against it. And X-Force Iris is when you get right a boom, something happened and you need somebody to help you recover. That's what that team does associated with it. All right, so our discussion today is we're going to be talking about this thing that sees everything. So when we start talking about this foundation or this fundamental for great security, I want to be able to have a tool, a device, an area that sees everything or has the capability of seeing everything within inside my organization. So when we start talking about that, I want to be able to use that thing that sees all of my endpoints and my users and my activity and my logs, that sees all of those things, and I want to use that to detect and stop my threats. I want this system to be my snitch. I want it to tell me these are normal, this is normal. Hey, these things are over here playing bad, and that's the malware that just got delivered associated with it. So I'm going to take this offering from IBM, and IBM's offering in this area is called QRadar. And whether you use Forrester or Gartner, for the last 11 years, #1 SIM for advanced threat defense in the market space, right? So the undisputed champion in that area, right? But its whole goal is to be able to do user and entile profiling, statistical analysis, pattern identification, real-time analytics, and real-time and risk-based analytics, threat hunting, and in that context, be able to say, I think we've got a problem right here and we should fix this. So here's why we think this is going to be important. We as organizations, we as many organizations, we're going to struggle to find things within inside our environment. We're going to struggle to find, excuse me, stealthy adversaries, right? And they are stealthy, whether they're nation states or whether they're corporate espionage, or they're just some guys trying to deny you access to your data. They've gotten pretty good at being stealthy associated with it, using multiple attack vectors and trying to achieve something associated with that, right? So we struggle to find these stealthy adversaries because of how complex the attacks are sometimes. We struggle sometimes with critical vulnerabilities, right? Understanding that the vulnerability in this one area may affect customer relation database or exfiltration associated with that. And being able to understand those vulnerabilities is going to be a key piece of how I'm going to be able to address these threats. We struggle to find our insider threats, right? It was easy when we had this big perimeter and a moat and glass wall, and we were trying to, and people were trying to come in associated with this, right? But now there's some studies that have been done that said insiders represent 51% of the threats our organizations are facing today, and we struggle to find those, and we're going to be able to talk about, as well as privacy risks, right? I mean, this is the one, right? GDPR rang the bell pretty hard when it said, hey, you know what? If you fail to protect your customers' data, we're not just going to charge you $100,000 when that happens. We're going to charge you 1% of your global top line revenue as a fine associated with it. Boy, howdy, did that get customer organizations who are doing privacy things, that get their attention associated with that. So you struggle with that, right? But it's not that we don't have enough data, right? 44% of the alerts that are created aren't investigated, right? Talk to Target, right? Alert, alert, alert. No, it's okay. We're all right, right? Alerts are not investigated. 54% of the legitimate alerts are not remediated, right? So I've got a legitimate alert and I haven't fixed it yet, right? So I got a problem with either getting the task done or prioritization or something, right? But still, 36% keep saying, alerts is my top concern, right? But data tells me that we're not doing enough associated with this. So let's talk about what we see as the 3 pillars of very effective threat detection. First and foremost, see everything, right? Be able to connect to all of those different devices and understand what's normal and abnormal associated with that. I need to also automate my intelligence. I've got too many devices and too many things sitting out there. When it comes to, hey, I've discovered these indicators of compromise, we should be able to have some tool, some technique to be able to gather more insights associated with that in an automagic type format, which then helps us become proactive. Because being proactive is how we stop those advanced persistent threats. So from an IBM QRadar perspective, this is what we're talking about as how it addresses those pillars, right? First and foremost, complete visibility. I'm going to have connectivity and information on endpoints and data and network and users and threat intelligence and configuration and application and cloud platforms, right? So I'm going to be able to see all the platforms, devices, and things that are in my network and have them feed into a single pane of glass for us. And then from that, I'm going to be able to prioritize those threats. Remember 56, whatever that number was, of those threats weren't weren't remediated, I'm going to be able to prioritize those threats and say, based upon business conditions or privacy concerns or value of the asset, this has a higher priority to me and my business than something else within inside an organization. So remediation team, get cracking on those types of things, right? As well as automate some of these things, right? If we don't have the right number of staff, as well as the right training for those staff, I want to automate some of those investigations so I've got that information for them and help guide them, which then gets me to this proactive hunting. All right, let me get my insider threats, let me understand where my critical data is, and let me look at who's doing what associated with that. So again, this is just another slide that demonstrates when I say see everything, or I talk about see everything, I want to be able to understand the business context and user and have a single place for this to be able to take a look at. Now we're going to see a great example of that in our second webinar, where we talk about user behavior analytics and how that's part of it. But we're going to talk about a use case today that sees everything. We document how this attack unfolded inside my organization, right, or inside my demo environment, shall we say, right? And then when we say automating intelligence, first I have to be able to detect the threats that's going on associated with that, right? So when I have this detect, I want to be able to do known and unknown threats, right? You're saying to yourself, Frank, what do you mean unknown threats, right? Known threats are pretty easy associated with that, but unknown threats can be, this is an anomaly, this is something that we haven't seen before, we want you to be able to investigate that. I want to have a system that helps me understand that. I want to be able to relate activity in multi-stage attacks. And we're going to talk about that as part of our use case today, that multi-stage attacks and what that looks like. I want to be able to then prioritize that. We talked about how important that prioritization was, as well as then investigate this, right? Potential incidents with artificial intelligence to find the root cause faster, right? So I'm going to have this system that detects and stops threats, then I need to start investigating them as well. Which then leads us into this last thing, becoming very proactive associated. I want to be able to hunt threats with quick and advanced searches, as well as information that's available to me, right? I want to be able to respond faster, and this will be our third session, where we start talking about automated container and management with incident response integration. And then I want to continuously improve this. I want to gather that information and save it and use it again as part of my body of intellectual property for how I manage and maintain threat intel and data and how I respond inside my organization. And one of the things I really want to talk about, we start talking about this demo thing, is I'm going to talk about this open platform, right? The OCA thing that we have associated with that. So IBM created several years ago, as part of their growth and initiatives, as part of the security platform, they started this thing called the IBM Security App Exchange. Knowing that we were going to have applications for our security offerings from an IBM perspective, they wanted to be able to have this validated area that a developer or IBM could come up with an application that was an add-on to either QRadar or I2 or Resilient or the security offerings from IBM, that then that's maintained and validated by IBM, but is then worked on by our members of the Alliance and the IBM team to do that. And so here's an example of when we say see everything, though we've got out-of-the-box integrations with all of these platforms we see here, from a see everything piece, we're able to connect to extensions that Amazon or Carbon Black or Palo Alto or Cybereason or Checkpoint created to help us see everything and extend our knowledge into that area. We have tools out there that help automate that intelligence by going out there and gathering information and on the indicators of compromise, and being able to automate why some things happen and putting information at your fingertips, as well as being proactive. Integration with incident response platforms and IRP platform to be able to solve and fix and address and remediate threats inside our organization. So we had this is a total economic impact of IBM's QRadar security intelligence platform that talks about some of the things that QRadar has brought to organizations, right? So, and I think this is kind of interesting. Average time to respond to incidents, just like a heart attack where time equals muscle, in a cyber attack, time equals loss or more penetration or something like that associated with that. So average time to be able to respond to incidents associated with that from this organization went from 4 hours to 1 hour with inside their organization. And that goes to, I see everything, I'm correlating advanced attacks associated with it, and I'm gathering this information associated with that, right? So when we think about that, 75% improvement in threat detection and speed to detect, right? And that's critical as part of our cyber attacks. A 75% improvement in incident response times, as well as efficiency gains in investigations. And let's not forget this little thing called compliance reporting. We'll talk a lot more of that in our third one. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how this QRadar platform lives inside your customer environment. So we talk about the challenges that it solves, as well as the proactive and the automation and the see everything capability associated with this. But also we get to think about where this thing lives, right? So we've got that traditional, hey, I've got an on-premise model with either IBM hardware or just IBM software or virtual machine. You get to pick customer, right? We support all of those models. We have a model that supports it as a service. So if you're going to use a SaaS offering and you're going to let IBM handle DevOps and DevSecOps and you just manage watching the wire and things like that, got it managed as a service. You could deploy this out in AWS, Azure, out in Google Cloud, right? So if you want to deploy it on cloud and you manage it, right, have the capability of doing that. As well as I've been doing solution designs and configurations where we've got a hybrid model associated with this as well, where we've got on-prem and SaaS or an infrastructure piece associated with that. I'm happy to say that there is yet to be a model we haven't been able to figure out how to get QRadar to be supported in, right? So I just wanted to make sure we understood that we can get QRadar to live and work in almost any of these almost any of these types of environments, right? So let's talk about the demo we've got today. Oh my goodness, the demo we've got today. All right, I'm going to escape this nasty PowerPoint presentation. Not nasty. I love this PowerPoint presentation. But when you get the demo for this, or the slides for this, it'll have all of these slides, but I just took a look at my time. I've been so bloviating this entire thing. I need to step it up here a little bit before we do this, right? But this is basically what we're going to start showing today, is this piece of it, right? And that really is what we wanted to talk about as part of our demo today. And right now I'll just walk through what that looks like. So our demo environment, here's my demo environment running out of our cyber range in Phoenix, Arizona, our Tech Data Cyber Range in Phoenix, Arizona. And I've got all the toys, all the bells and whistles working with inside our lab over there, so I can do these types of demos and discussions and things like that. And this is a view of my QRadar environment sitting in my lab. And this particular view just shows off, the different ways that I can view data with inside of QRadar. Now, this is not a full QRadar demo. This is going to be a demo on a specific use case. If you, for whatever reason, want a full QRadar demo, contact Jim or Courtney or anybody on the team, and we will absolutely schedule the full QRadar demo where we talk about how we get stuff in, how we get stuff out, how we analyze things, and all those other things associated with that. But let's just say, for the sake of our purposes today, we got this configured to receive event and flow information from outside from our organization, including cloud, and I've got rules that define my security policy. And so there's my security policies. And now I've got my security policies, and now I'm going to take a look at my security policies and say, has anybody violated my security policies, right? And so as part of our discussion today, I've already got my system has generated a whole bunch of different offenses too, right? Offensive violations of security policy. And even this one view helps me understand not just the description and offense tag, we actually slipped in a red, yellow, green, how important, right? What's the magnitude of this offense to my organization from a business impact associated with that? And that's where we start seeing this prioritization of what's most important, what has a higher magnitude within inside my organization, as well as some other great information. Now, I said we were going to talk about an advanced persistent threat that involved some great exploits, shall we say, right? So I'm going to take a look. I think it is right. Let's see. New process and create hidden share, right? So 157 and 156 actually roll together, right? And so we're going to take a look at offense number 157. Now, it's just in my demo, it's offense 157. And this tells me some great things associated with that. As part of my QRadar demo, you would have seen where flow came from and where information came from, but I just wanted to be able to show this because it shows us several different things. First and foremost, this first tells me, if I'm a SOC analyst, that this is an advanced persistent threat. I've got somebody out there doing several things for me. If I'm using some of my competitors' products, we're going to see each one of these line items as a separate offense. So your SOC analyst team, your folks that are looking at this, you have to put it together in your head that these things are chained, that they're put together. QRadar's correlation engine said, hold it, based upon time, geography, indicators of compromise, and user. These are all the same type offense associated with that. Now I see that it lists that at first as a new process got created, right? Okay, so that's where do I get that piece of information? Then it was preceded by a metasploit, right? So if you're a ethical hacker, you may have used this tool called Metasploit, which launches our framework for launching our sneaky Pete stuff, shall we say? And then we know that PS exec is PowerShell exec, and it was detected on an endpoint associated with that. Then it said preceded by PS exec has launched from a compromised host, and I know that was a compromised host because I was monitoring its network activity, and it connected to a compromised indicator compromise. Then it was preceded by PowerShell malicious usage detected with an encode command. If I'm a bad guy, that is how I get PowerShell to execute and escalate privileges on your endpoint associated with that. And then I get some exploit suspicious host activity chained together. And that's where we see it in Office 158, where it connects a drive and starts exploiting data associated with it, right? So that's why 157 and 158 go together. Now, if I want to see all the evidence of these violations of my security policy, I can just click on this button over here on my side, and it'll show me all of the events or all of the flows that make up this. So I've got this information right at my fingertip. I can tell when it happened, how it happened, who connected to it associated with that, right? So right now, this is just indicating all of the event names that were associated with this and which log source it came from. So you'll notice that this came from a Windows authentication server, right? So I'm using MSRPC to connect to the Windows security and event log, and it says, hey, a new process got created. Well, I know that as part of my security policy, anytime a new process is created, that's a violation of my security policy, right? That's just one of those things, right? So PS exec was launched from a compromised host, right? So this just shows me all of my information. Now, if I want to view it and slice and dice it in different areas, like say maybe I just want to be able to show it by low-level category instead of high-level category, right? I got 7 categories over here. Show me which categories this falls into. I can have it say, okay, just show the distribution. No, here's my malware versus my process create versus my password guessing, right? So I can see all of that. And if I want to view that information, I just double click that and it launches me and shows me those pieces of information, right? So again, I can view and see information all over the place, right? So I get those types of things associated with that. Right, so I'm going to close those because I think we all believe that that's how this is how we have now tracked this as an exploit within inside my organization, right? We've chained all these things together. So one of the other things I like to be able to show as part of this is I want you to be able to see the rules, right? We talked very briefly about the rules, and we never talked about these things called building blocks, but that's part of the full presentation, shall we say, right? these are the rules that were evaluated in real time. So these rules are out there, right? My system has got about 1,100 different rules it's evaluating in real time that codify my security policies within inside my organization. So if I take a look at some of my rules, right? I'm going to first just go ahead and take a look at this thing. PowerShell malicious usage detected with an encode command. We have 878 events or flows associated with that. The first event happened 2 hours and 32 minutes ago. That's when I turned my system on. And the last one happened 52 seconds ago. So this is an ongoing attack as well, right? So I'm just going to click on my PowerShell usage was detected with an encode command. And I want to quickly just show you the rule that makes this up. First and foremost, you'll notice it's not an SQL query. I'm not trying to figure out how to query this thing and tie it together and put it together and things like that. These are all the tests that I could possibly put against this thing. And my test is actually ones or zero, yes or no. Did it happen or did it not happen? All right, so these are all the tests I could run against it, and these are the ones that I am running, right? So on events that are detected in the local system, and when it comes from a Windows security event log, and that could be a Windows security event log, and right now I've defined all of my Windows security event logs. This could be a Linux event log, this could be a Palo Alto event log, but for this case, right, it's just a Windows event log. And when the QID, that's the only thing is called a QRadar ID, QID, is one of the following: process create, success audit, a new process has been created. So when a new process is created on a Windows machine, it sends this to the Windows security event log. And I'm monitoring in real time the Windows security event logs. This is how I know this is happening in real time. All right, so when it sees these things, I'm going to tell QRadar to do things about that. I'm going to first have it do a rule action that increases my severity and credibility and relevance, which equals my magnitude, right? So this is a bad thing is what I'm trying to say. And as part of my rule response, I want to make sure that I notify somebody with an offense that I got created, but I'm also adding this information to some reference sets. I could email somebody, I could forward to some destinations. If this is bad enough, I could have used an API call to tell like Cisco NAC to knock that thing into a penalty fee land, right? I could have done all those different things associated with it, right? So those are all the things I could have done associated with it. I'm going to cancel this and say, no, let's not do that. So this is an example of how I can use this QRadar system to see everything within inside my environment, correlate in real time whether or not that's a violation of my security policy, and notify me in real time that something has happened, right? And then I very quickly can threat hunt that. In next month's discussion, we're going to talk about how we'll use this same event, and we'll talk about how we threat hunt this. And we're going to use two tools associated with that. We're going to first talk about QRadar's user behavior analytics for being able to catch threats that are insider threats within our organization. And this is an no charge add-on to your QRadar environment. And then we're going to talk about QRadar Advisor with Watson as a way to be able to force multiply your team's effectiveness with AI within your organization. So Jim, that was the discussion I really wanted to have this morning about using QRadar to be able to see everything within our environment. First and foremost, help our customers find and detect and then stop advanced persistent threats within our environment with rules and real time and all this great pieces of technology.
All right. That's fantastic, Frank. I really do appreciate that. I think, very insightful. And I think hopefully folks out there can see, and it's getting exciting, right? With user behavior analytics upcoming, we'll be able to threat hunt some things in real time, which I'm sure is often an issue for folks. So really do appreciate that information. We were just going to provide a little bit of data around intiGrow right now. So with the goal to primarily, talk about what we do, how we do it, some of our, focal points, if you will. and answer questions along the way. This will be very quick, and we'll be able to get you guys back on your way to your day. If there are questions, please feel free to put them in chat, or we'll have some contact information for you to share as well. Very quickly, as Frank said, we are a global systems integrator, strategy, risk, compliance-based organization. Our technology services and solutions experience is very much focused around all aspects of cyber. We do have managed security services as well. We are very kind of globally renowned for IAM governance. Also, PAM now is huge, cloud identity, convergence, and we'll talk a little more about that. We do provide managed infrastructure services and consulting. We basically integrate everything that we sell and that we partner with. So we have kind of a multitude of partners. Obviously, one showpiece here is definitely QRadar and all that it can provide. And we'll be talking about all of the other aspects of the SOC and other operations as we go forward, as Frank mentioned. We have a model that we call EXE, which is Execute and Elevate, that enables us to deliver things either on site, on-prem, nearshore, and offshore support, as we do have global ISO 27000 certified SOCs to help the model too. But our goal is to make you more efficient and reduce cost. So that is a pretty big issue these days. And I think you'll find that we have a kind of some methodologies to kind of, practice what we preach here. We're consistently ranked as one of the most competent and best value vendors for most of our clients. I'll give you a little sniff about who some of those are. But I think you'll find that, the way that we work, is very efficient, and our goal is not to break the bank. We understand that people have budgetary constraints and must live within frameworks, because if you're like me, you ask for $100 in your operation and you're challenged back, and then people say, okay, you can have 60, right? After you verify that what's really important. So for attending today, we have a couple of gifts for you. If you choose to kind of move forward, we're happy to do this. There really are no, there's no requirement. But the first one is a free risk assessment. We do review specific areas within organizations. It can be anything from endpoint to server to cloud to IoT components, anything around security, compliance, or risk management that you're having issue with, or you would like a second opinion on, or you're not sure if your topology is exactly right, or if you're not sure if it should be more of a hybrid model. We have a multitude of information in our knowledge base, and senior and principal level architects kind of all over the US and all over the world. So we can certainly sit down. It's a little difficult to do things in person these days, but we can certainly do that with you via one of these Zoom conferences, or whatever works best for you. The other component that we do have for you, if you should choose, is a free business value assessment. And lots of folks around the world are taking us up on this. A lot of times people aren't sure all the components that they should be renewing. They're looking at, it could even be threat intelligence data, it could be whatever. They're not sure if they're getting value from all of the components that are out there. So we do assist people. Again, this is gratis. And this is basically how we earn folks' trust. But to really do asset effectiveness review, so we can gain an understanding of exactly how things are working. We can measure that also against cost and create kind of a value kind of perspective. And then from there, obviously understanding the return on investment for yourself, and even for, in some cases, your management or your leadership, can be very valuable for people. One contact point for these is info@intiGrow, but I'm also going to give you my contact information today, as well as Courtney's. And if there are any discussion points, challenges, or anything you want to bounce off us, we're happy to kind of review that. Some of the things we standardly get involved in, as Frank was mentioning earlier, we do all kinds of consulting, integration, planning around endpoint, all things server, network, firewall, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention solutions. SIM, as we were just talking about, obviously, that QRadar discussion was very complex, but that is a very strategic hub in most folks' security posture and policy these days. Also, the orchestrated response component of that has really made SOAR, kind of rear its head now and really kind of serve notice that it's a strategic part of, SOC operations. So that orchestrated response aspect is being utilized by more and more folks out there. DLP is a large part of what we do as well, data loss prevention and protection strategy and integration of countermeasures. So those are things that we do. We can help you develop your topology, network zone strategy, so that we don't keep the crown jewels on the same network that may be approachable. This is all part of risk mitigation. Forensic investigation, we do some of this ourselves, but we also have very strategic partners who do this down to full attribution. So just to let you know, there are ways to find out the who, what, and where of kind of what's going on in your network very specifically. And there are sources that can be utilized, as Frank was mentioning, but also from an intiGrow perspective that we can utilize to make that happen. We're very involved in application security from a full, product development lifecycle or application development lifecycle. All the, the scanning and all the assessment work that we do for applications helps to mitigate risk. It could be anything from a loose table join to, kind of a non-compliant or non-updated component within the application framework. If it's out there, you can bet we'll find it. We do posture and policy assessments. Frank was just talking about, how we take your posture that you've obviously developed and create standard policy from a SIM perspective. But this can include all standards within an organization. So, not just kind of the threat intel part of this, but, your policy can be developed, obviously for auditors, for senior management and companies, and for other reasons, insurance purposes. But we can help you develop that policy in line with the posture and all the standards that you've likely already put together. We do a lot, and I mean a lot, of identity access and now privileged access and account management for both distributed and cloud environments. So that is a very strategic part of what people are doing these days. During this web series, we probably won't be able to get quite as deeply into that, but we're happy to talk to anybody offline about any strategy they may be thinking about, or if they just have some questions about how they might want to go about doing something. We're certainly happy to discuss that. Most folks, I would say that 80% rule that Frank brought up earlier is probably very similar in IAM these days. But now, with the need to provision all the cloud assets that folks have, and to be able to have one source of truth, or kind of one place or single LDAP to provision, deprovision users across multiple realms, these are the kinds of things we're very involved with today. We do help folks, as you can see, with SOC operations issues and IR, incident response, red, blue, purple team issues. So if that's an area of interest for discussion, and as we talked about, even if showing, SIM demo or other is something that we can certainly do on through a proof of concept, if that's ever desired as well. Overall threat management is even much larger than even that aspect of things, but that kind of strategy and the tools integration under there are things that we also get severely involved with and are well known for being an excellent integrator. Pen testing is something that people do at times. We do this not only for applications and network, we also do this for telecommunications solutions. We do it for VoIP. We do it for all kinds of things these days, even IoT, because there aren't too many standards in IoT OS and application code issues. These are things we involve ourselves in as well as full life cycle compliance remediation. And that can be anything. Frank brought up GDPR earlier. By the way, Frank, I think the number is 4% for the penalty. So that, so the 1%, if somebody gets in a little trouble, would be hurtful. 4% could be really large. So
Painful.
yeah. So but yeah, so we consult with folks and help them to get remediated on a number of issues, from GLBA to HIPAA to SOX to NERC and FERC compliance to ISO 27000 issues, which we do on a very regular basis, to other things. So very quickly, we truly are a global organization. We do have headquarters offices in the US here, in the Atlanta area, and offices and SOX kind of all around the world. We are a certified minority-owned business, which means for folks out there that we really help them comply with their diversity requirements as well, which a lot of people know us to be very helpful for. So we are also geographically specific in terms of being able to help even provide a consulting resource or two with wherever your issue might reside. So that's a little bit about our footprint. Wanted to go through that quickly. We are fortunate to get to work with some of what we feel are the greatest category leaders in the world. This is just a quick smattering of some of the folks that we get to work with in a multitude of verticals for compliance reasons, but many organizations in multiple vertical markets have similar issues. So we're able to benchmark, collaborate, and to help them work with us to help each other as well. So that about wraps that up. We would invite you to stay tuned for our Posture and Policy series, phase 2 and 3. As Frank said, we're going to drill down deeper into a lot of other areas with regard to threat in phase 2. That is Tuesday, July 28th. We would love to have you there if you can be, and answer questions that you might have, or go through any other kind of technology areas if you would like to see specific items related to kind of what Frank showed you or what we've discussed today. And then we'll go on to phase 3 on August 12th as part of our kind of continued series here. We're very grateful for your attendance and would like to say thanks again for being with us today. Down below, I've provided my direct contact information as well. So info@intiGrow works well. You can reply directly to myself, also to Courtney, who's aboard here as well. And we're happy to answer any questions, or if you want to take us up on one of our BVA or free assessment offerings, we're happy to do so. So other than that, we would just tell you to, before I kind of jump along, are there additional questions right now that we have? Let's see. Okay. I think we're pretty good then in that regard. So,
and I didn't see any in the Q&A section either there, Jim.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, in that case, I guess maybe, Frank, we can give folks their day back.
Let's do that. We had a good hour here.
All right. Sounds great. So thanks again very much for everyone's attending. Frank, thanks very much for all the knowledge today. And we look forward to seeing you on our next event.
All right. Bye now.
All right. Take care.